Ryan arrived at Adam's house on a quiet afternoon when the sky was the color of old paper and the air carried the promise of rain. He stood at the gate longer than necessary, fingers tightening around the strap of his worn backpack, listening to the distant hum of traffic and the softer sounds of a neighborhood that had learned how to be patient with time. This place felt different from anywhere he had lived before, slower, gentler, as if the walls themselves had learned how to breathe. Adam opened the door before Ryan could knock a second time. He was taller than Ryan expected, his posture straight despite the years that showed softly in his silvering hair. There was a calm in Adam's eyes that didn't ask questions right away, a calm that made space instead of filling it. He smiled, not wide but warm, like someone who had been expecting this moment without rushing it. "You must be Ryan," Adam said, his voice steady and low, like a familiar song played at a careful volume. Ryan nodded. "Yes. Thank you for letting me stay." "Of course," Adam replied, stepping aside. "Come in. You must be tired." The house smelled faintly of tea leaves and old books. The furniture was simple, well cared for, each piece placed with intention rather than decoration. Sunlight filtered through thin curtains, leaving soft patterns on the wooden floor. Ryan felt his shoulders loosen without realizing they had been tense. Adam took Ryan's bag without comment and led him down a narrow hallway. "You can use the guest room," he said. "It's quiet. Faces the garden." Ryan followed, absorbing everything: the framed photographs on the walls, the sound of a clock ticking somewhere deeper in the house, the sense that life here moved according to its own gentle rhythm. When Adam opened the door to the room, Ryan stopped at the threshold. It wasn't large, but it was welcoming. A neatly made bed, a small desk by the window, a bookshelf half filled with novels and notebooks. Outside, the garden rested in calm greens, leaves stirring lightly in the breeze. "It's perfect," Ryan said, and meant more than just the room. Adam nodded, as if he understood something unspoken. "Take your time to settle in. Tea will be ready soon." Left alone, Ryan sat on the edge of the bed and exhaled. The past few months had been a blur. Decisions made too quickly, words said too late, doors closed before he knew he needed them open. Staying here wasn't part of any grand plan. It was a pause. A place to breathe. When he returned to the living room, Adam was pouring tea into 2 simple cups. The rain had begun softly, tapping against the windows with a patient rhythm. "Milk or sugar?" Adam asked. "Just plain is fine," Ryan replied. They sat across from each other, the small table between them acting as both boundary and bridge. For a while neither spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It felt earned, like a mutual agreement not to rush into explanations. "You can stay as long as you need," Adam said eventually. "No pressure. Sometimes people just need a place where nothing is expected of them." Ryan looked up, surprised by how directly the words landed. "Thank you. I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that." Adam smiled again, softer this time. "Most people don't." As the evening deepened, they talked about simple things. Ryan's studies, Adam's work, the weather, the garden. Adam spoke of routines and small pleasures. Morning walks, cooking slow meals, reading before bed. Ryan listened, finding comfort in the predictability of it all. There was a noticeable difference between them, not just in age but in the way they carried time. Ryan felt as though he was still learning how to hold his days without spilling them. Adam seemed to have mastered the art of letting moments arrive and leave without struggle. Later, as Adam showed Ryan where the bathroom was and how the old heater worked, Ryan became aware of something else, a quiet attention in Adam's presence. Not scrutiny, not judgment. Just awareness. It made Ryan feel seen without being examined. That night, lying in the guest bed, Ryan stared at the ceiling as rain continued its soft conversation with the roof. He thought about how unexpected this stay was, how strange it felt to find comfort so quickly. He told himself it was just exhaustion, just relief. But somewhere between the ticking clock and the distant thunder, another thought settled in, gentle, unannounced. Some places change you not by what happens in them, but by how safe they feel while nothing happens at all. And in the quiet house with the man who spoke carefully and listened deeply, Ryan sensed that this was only the beginning of something he didn't yet have words for. Morning arrived gently in Adam's house. There were no alarms, no rushed footsteps, only the low whistle of a kettle and the soft creak of floorboards warming to the day. Ryan woke to the smell of toast and something earthy, coffee maybe, and for a moment he forgot where he was. Then the quiet returned to him, familiar already, and with it a sense of ease he hadn't felt in a long time. When he entered the kitchen, Adam was standing by the window, sleeves rolled up, watching the garden as if it were a living companion. He turned when he heard Ryan's steps. "Good morning," Adam said. I hope you slept well. I did, Ryan replied, surprised at how true it was. Better than I expected. Adam nodded, as though rest were something he took seriously. Routine helps, he said. Even a temporary one. They ate together at the small kitchen table. The conversation stayed light. Favorite foods, the way the neighborhood changed with seasons, how the garden needed less water after rain. Yet beneath the ordinary words, Ryan felt something settling into place. There was comfort in the predictability, in knowing that tomorrow would likely begin the same way. Over the next few days, their lives began to overlap in small, almost invisible ways. Ryan learned which mug Adam preferred, the one with a tiny crack near the handle. Adam noticed that Ryan liked to sit near the window when he read, as if light helped him think. These observations were never spoken aloud, but they shaped their shared space. In the afternoons, Adam often worked in his study, the door half open. Ryan would sit in the living room with a book, the quiet punctuated by the turning of pages or the scratch of Adam's pen. Sometimes Adam would pause and ask what Ryan was reading. Ryan would answer, a little shyly, and Adam would listen with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions that made Ryan feel his thoughts mattered. One evening, as Rain returned like an old friend, the power flickered and went out entirely. The house fell into a deeper quiet, wrapped in shadow. I'll get some candles, Adam said calmly. They sat together in the living room, the candlelight softening the edges of everything. Shadows danced on the walls and the space between them felt different, closer, more intentional. Adam poured tea again, careful not to spill, and handed Ryan a cup. This house feels very alive, Ryan said, surprising himself. Not loud. Just aware. Adam smiled at that. I think places learn from the people who live in them. Ryan considered this. Then it must have learned patience from you. Adam looked at him for a moment longer than usual, his expression thoughtful. Patience is something you grow into, he said quietly. Often because you had no other choice. The words lingered. Ryan sensed there was more behind them, but he didn't push. He was beginning to understand that Adam shared things when he was ready, not when asked. As days passed, Ryan found himself looking forward to small moments. The sound of Adam's footsteps in the morning, the way he paused before speaking, choosing words with care. There was a steadiness in Adam that Ryan hadn't realized he'd been craving. A sense that emotions didn't have to be dramatic to be real. One afternoon they worked in the garden together. Adam showed Ryan how to trim the plants without hurting them, how to recognize when something needed space rather than attention. People aren't so different, Adam said, almost to himself. Ryan laughed softly. I think I've been overwatering my own life. Adam glanced at him, amused. That's an easy mistake. Their hands brushed briefly as they reached for the same tool. It was nothing, an accident really, but Ryan felt the moment echo longer than it should have. Adam didn't pull away abruptly. He simply continued, as if acknowledging the contact without assigning it meaning. Yet something shifted inside Ryan, subtle but unmistakable. That evening Ryan lay awake again, but this time his thoughts were quieter. He wasn't replaying regrets or worrying about the future. Instead he thought about Adam's voice, the calm certainty of it, and how safe it felt to be around someone who didn't demand explanations. He wondered when admiration began to blur into something warmer. He wondered if Adam felt anything at all, or if this was simply kindness interpreted through loneliness. In the following days the quiet between them grew richer. Silences were no longer pauses in conversation. They were shared spaces. Sometimes Adam would sit nearby while Ryan studied, offering no advice, just presence. Sometimes Ryan would cook dinner, and Adam would watch with a small, approving smile. Neither spoke of feelings. Neither needed to. The house seemed to hold them gently, allowing whatever was forming to do so at its own pace. Ryan began to understand that not all connections announce themselves loudly. Some arrive like morning light, slow, steady, and impossible to ignore once you've noticed the warmth. And in those small moments, woven into ordinary days, quiet feelings began to take root, waiting patiently for the courage to be named. The day Ryan finally unraveled did not arrive with drama. There was no argument, no sudden loss, no clear reason that could be pointed to and explained. It came quietly, like exhaustion that had been waiting for permission to be felt. It was late afternoon. The sky hung low and gray, pressing gently against the windows. Adam had gone out for a short walk, something he did often when his thoughts needed air. Ryan stayed behind, intending to read, but the words on the page refused to stay in place. His mind kept drifting, back to choices he had made, to people he had disappointed, to versions of himself he no longer recognized. When Adam returned he sensed it immediately. Ryan was sitting on the living room floor, back against the couch, knees drawn to his chest. The book lay open beside him, unread. His gaze was fixed somewhere distant, unfocused. Adam set his keys down quietly. He didn't speak right away. He simply took off his coat and sat in the armchair across from Ryan, leaving enough space to breathe but not enough to feel alone. "You don't look like yourself," Adam said at last gently. Ryan tried to smile but it didn't quite form. "I don't know who that is anymore." The word surprised them both. Ryan hadn't planned to say anything so honest. Once spoken though, they seemed to loosen something inside him. Adam leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on his knees. "Do you want to talk about it?" Ryan hesitated. He wasn't used to being asked like that, not with real choice attached. Usually, conversations came with expectations. Explain yourself, justify your feelings, arrive at a conclusion. Adam's question carried none of that. "I don't even know where to start," Ryan admitted. "Then don't start," Adam said. "Just say what's closest." Ryan swallowed. His voice was quieter when he spoke again. "I feel like I'm always behind. Like everyone else learned how to live and I missed the lesson." Adam listened without interruption. His expression didn't change, but there was something in his eyes. Recognition, perhaps. Ryan continued, words tumbling out more freely now. He spoke about pressure, about trying to become someone acceptable, about fear of making the wrong choice and the heavier fear of making none at all. He spoke of loneliness that didn't go away even in company, and of how exhausting it was to pretend he was fine. When his voice finally faltered, Adam spoke, not with solutions but with truth. "I know that feeling," he said quietly. "Very well." Ryan looked up, surprised. Adam rarely spoke about himself without careful consideration. "There were years," Adam continued, "when I believed I had failed simply because my life didn't look the way I thought it should. I kept waiting for certainty. It never came. What did come was time, and with it, the understanding that uncertainty isn't a flaw. It's a condition of being alive." Ryan let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "How did you stop being afraid?" Adam's mouth curved into a small, rueful smile. "I didn't. I just learned to sit with the fear instead of running from it." The room fell quiet again, but this silence was different. It felt shared, intentional. Ryan's eyes burned suddenly, and before he could stop himself, emotion rose up, sharp and unexpected. "I'm tired," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm so tired of trying to be strong." Adam stood then, slowly, deliberately, and moved closer. He didn't touch Ryan right away. He knelt nearby, close enough that Ryan could feel his presence, his steady breathing. "You don't have to be strong here," Adam said. "Not with me." That was enough. Ryan's composure slipped, and he covered his face with his hands. He didn't sob, it wasn't dramatic. Tears came quietly, almost apologetically. Adam remained where he was, offering nothing but time and acceptance. After a moment, Adam placed a hand on Ryan's shoulder, firm, grounding, respectful. The contact was simple but it carried weight. Ryan leaned into it without thinking, as if his body had made the decision before his mind could interfere. They stayed like that for a long time. No advice. No reassurances that everything would be fine. Just presence. Eventually Ryan's breathing slowed. The storm inside him eased, leaving behind a fragile calm. "I'm sorry," Ryan murmured. Adam shook his head. "There's nothing to apologize for." Ryan looked at him, then really looked. The lines around Adam's eyes spoke of years lived fully, not without pain but without bitterness. In that moment, Ryan felt something deepen. Trust, certainly, but also a quiet affection that had nothing to do with need. "Thank you," Ryan said, "for not trying to fix me." Adam smiled softly. "You're not broken." As evening settled in, Adam made dinner and Ryan helped in small ways, chopping vegetables, setting the table. They didn't talk much, but they didn't need to. Something important had been shared, something fragile and true. Later that night, Ryan returned to his room feeling lighter, though nothing in his life had technically changed. What had changed was the knowledge that he didn't have to carry everything alone. And in the quiet house, under the steady roof that had become a refuge, two people understood each other a little more, not through grand gestures but through the simple courage of being seen. After that afternoon, something subtle but undeniable shifted between them. Nothing outward changed. There were no declarations, no sudden gestures, but the air itself seemed more aware, as if it held a secret neither of them had named. The house remained quiet, routines unchanged, yet every shared moment carried a new weight. Ryan noticed it first in the silences. They were no longer simply comfortable. They felt charged, alive with things left unsaid. When Adam sat across from him at breakfast, reading the paper, Ryan sometimes found his gaze drifting, not in search of answers but of reassurance. Adam would look up, their eyes meeting briefly, and something gentle would pass between them before one of them looked away. Adam, for his part, became more careful without meaning to. He measured his words, his movements, as if aware that each one mattered now. He had lived long enough to recognize the early signs of emotional closeness, the quiet pull, the instinct to protect, the warmth that arrived without permission. What unsettled him was not the feeling itself, but its direction. One evening they walked through the neighborhood as dusk settled in. The streetlights flickered on one by one, casting long shadows across the pavement. They spoke about nothing important, the shape of clouds, a dog barking somewhere behind a fence, but their steps matched without effort, their pace unspokenly agreed upon. "You don't have to stay much longer, you know," Adam said at one point, not looking at Ryan. "If you feel ready to move on." Ryan's chest tightened. "Do you want me to go?" Adam stopped walking. He turned then, meeting Ryan's eyes fully. There was no confusion in his expression, only honesty. "I want what's best for you," he said. "Sometimes those aren't the same thing." Ryan nodded slowly. "I don't feel ready yet." Adam studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Then stay." The simplicity of the exchange lingered with Ryan long after they returned home. That night, sleep came slowly. He lay awake, listening to the familiar sounds of the house, thinking about how safe he felt here, and how dangerous safety could be when it began to matter too much. In the days that followed, small moments grew heavier with meaning. Adam would brush past Ryan in the hallway, careful but close. Ryan would catch himself smiling at the sound of Adam's laugh, a rare but genuine thing. Neither addressed it. Naming feelings would make them real, and reality came with consequences. Adam struggled quietly with his own thoughts. He was aware of the imbalance the world might see, the difference in age, in experience. He questioned his intentions, examined them carefully, finding no desire to control, only to care. Still, responsibility weighed on him. He had promised himself long ago never to become someone else's confusion. One afternoon, Ryan joined Adam in the study. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating dust motes in the air. Adam was reading, glasses perched low on his nose. Ryan sat across from him, pretending to focus on his notebook, though his attention kept drifting. "Adam?" he said suddenly. "Yes." "Do you ever wish you had chosen differently? Earlier in your life?" Adam closed his book slowly. "Every choice closes one door and opens another," he said. "I used to mourn the closed ones. Now I try to live fully in the rooms I'm in." Ryan absorbed that. "I'm scared of choosing wrong." Adam's voice softened. "Most people are. That fear doesn't disappear. It just becomes quieter when you stop facing it alone." Their eyes held again, longer this time. Ryan felt the urge to say something honest and frightening, but the words stayed trapped behind caution. Adam sensed it too. He stood, breaking the moment gently. "Tea," he offered. Ryan nodded, grateful for the pause. As weeks passed, the unspoken feelings did not fade. They deepened, becoming steadier, more patient. This wasn't the urgency Ryan had expected from attraction. It was slower, warmer, built on trust rather than impulse. One evening, during a storm, the lights flickered again. They sat close on the couch, listening to thunder roll in the distance. Adam reached for a blanket and draped it over both of them without thinking. Their shoulders touched just barely. Neither moved. The contact was simple, accidental, but it felt like a decision. Ryan's breath caught. Adam remained still, his presence calm, grounding. After a moment, Ryan relaxed, leaning slightly into the shared warmth. No words were spoken. None were needed. In that quiet, both understood the same truth. Something meaningful was growing between them, something neither could ignore forever. But for now they let it remain unspoken, protected by silence, shaped by respect, waiting for the right moment to be acknowledged. Because some feelings don't ask to be rushed. They ask to be honored. The conversation did not begin when either of them planned it. It arrived the way truth often does, quietly after patience had been stretched to its limit. It was a calm evening, the kind that felt suspended between seasons. Adam had cooked dinner, something simple, and they ate together at the table, the familiar comfort of routine grounding them both. Yet beneath the ordinary gestures, passing the salt, clearing plates, there was a tension neither could ignore anymore. Not uncomfortable but heavy with awareness. Afterward, Adam washed the dishes while Ryan dried them. Their movements were practiced now, efficient, almost domestic. When the last plate was set aside, Adam paused, resting his hands on the counter. "Ryan," he said, not turning around. Yes. Adam took a breath, steadying himself. We need to talk. Ryan felt his heart quicken, but he nodded. Okay. They moved to the living room and sat across from each other, the same chairs they had occupied on Ryan's first night here. The space between them felt smaller now, not physically but emotionally, filled with everything they had not yet said. Adam spoke first, his voice calm but deliberate. I want to be very careful with my words. Not because I'm afraid of the truth, but because the truth deserves respect. Ryan listened, hands folded tightly in his lap. I care about you, Adam continued. More than I expected to. And more than I can pretend away. Ryan's breath caught. Hearing the words aloud made everything feel suddenly real. Adam met his eyes. Before you say anything, I need you to know something. Whatever this is, whatever it becomes, it must be chosen freely. Without pressure. Without confusion. Especially from me. Ryan swallowed. You think I'm confused? I think you're young, Adam said gently. And thoughtful. And still discovering who you are. I don't want to be a part of that discovery if it means taking something from you instead of giving. The care in Adam's words loosened something in Ryan's chest. I've thought about that too, Ryan said quietly. A lot. I question myself more times than I can count. Whether this is just comfort, or gratitude, or loneliness. And? Adam asked softly. And it doesn't feel like that, Ryan said. It feels steady. Like something that doesn't rush me or ask me to be different. Being here, with you, I don't feel smaller. I feel more like myself. Adam closed his eyes briefly, absorbing the weight of that. There's also the difference between us, Adam said. In age. In experience. The world doesn't always look kindly on that. Ryan nodded. I know. And I know people might misunderstand. But this isn't about how it looks. It's about how it feels. And it feels honest. Silence settled between them again, but this time it wasn't a shelter. It was a turning point. Adam leaned back slightly, studying Ryan's face as if making sure he saw clarity there, not uncertainty. I need to ask you something, he said. And I need you to answer without trying to protect me. Ryan straightened. Okay. If I told you that we should slow down even more, keep this emotional, patient, undefined for a while, would that feel like rejection to you? Ryan considered the question carefully. When he spoke, his voice was steady. No. It would feel like respect. Adam exhaled, a breath he seemed to have been holding for weeks. Good, he said. Because that's what I want to offer you. Not a promise I can't keep. Not a future written too soon. Just honesty. Care. And the freedom to walk away if you ever need to. Ryan's eyes softened. I don't want to walk away, he said. Not right now. Adam nodded. Then we take it one day at a time. Ryan hesitated, then asked, Can I say something too? Of course. I don't need you to protect me from my feelings, Ryan said. I just need you to be real with yours. Adam held his gaze, the corners of his eyes creasing slightly. I can do that. There was a pause. One last moment where distance could still be chosen. Then Adam reached out slowly, deliberately, giving Ryan time to pull back if he wished. Ryan didn't. Adam's hand closed gently around Ryan's, warm and steady. The gesture was simple, but it carried the weight of choice, consent, and care. Ryan felt the contact ground him, not overwhelm him. This doesn't change who you are, Adam said quietly. And it doesn't define who you must become. Ryan smiled faintly. Neither does it scare me. They sat like that for a long time, hands joined, no urgency pulling them forward. What mattered was not what would happen next, but what had already been established. A foundation of trust, spoken aloud at last. Later that night, when Ryan returned to his room, he felt something close to peace. The questions were still there, the future still unwritten, but the uncertainty no longer felt lonely. And in the quiet house, two people rested in the rare comfort of having spoken the truth without losing each other in the process. What changed after that conversation was not dramatic, but it was unmistakable. The house felt the same, the routines remained intact, yet everything carried a new clarity. There was no longer a question hovering in the air, no careful circling around unnamed feelings. What existed between Adam and Ryan had been acknowledged, and in that acknowledgement, it had become steadier rather than louder. They did not rush to redefine themselves or their days. If anything, they slowed down. Mornings continued as before, quiet breakfasts, shared glances over cups of tea, but now there was an ease in them that Ryan hadn't known he was missing. He no longer wondered whether he was imagining the warmth in Adam's presence. It was there, grounded and real, not demanding anything beyond honesty. Adam, too, felt the difference. Choosing to speak had not complicated his life as he'd feared, it had simplified it. He no longer felt the need to second-guess every gesture or silence. Care, when acknowledged, became something that could be handled responsibly instead of cautiously avoided. They began making small, mutual decisions. Nothing grand. Ryan adjusted his schedule so he could join Adam on morning walks. Adam rearranged his evenings so they could cook together more often. These choices were not announced as commitments, but they carried meaning all the same. One afternoon as they walked through the park nearby, Ryan spoke up. "I've been thinking about what comes next for me," he said. "Not just here but in general." Adam listened as he always did. "What does that look like?" "I don't know yet," Ryan admitted. "But I don't feel as lost as I did before. I feel supported. Like I have the space to figure it out." Adam nodded. "That's how it should be." Ryan smiled at him. "I used to think choosing someone meant losing parts of yourself. Now I think it might help you find them." Adam glanced at him, thoughtful. "Only if the choice is mutual," he said. "And free." "It is," Ryan replied without hesitation. That certainty stayed with Adam long after they returned home. He had worried about becoming an anchor that weighed Ryan down. Instead, he realized they were learning how to stand beside each other, not in front or behind. There were difficult conversations too. About how others might see them. About assumptions the world makes. About the importance of maintaining independence alongside closeness. "I don't want to become your whole world," Adam said one evening. "And I don't want to be yours." Ryan nodded. "I don't want that either. I want you to be part of it. Not all of it." That understanding became another quiet agreement between them. Over time, Ryan began to rebuild parts of his life that had felt stalled. He took on new projects, reconnected with old interests. Adam encouraged him without directing him, offering perspective rather than instruction. When Ryan succeeded, Adam celebrated without claiming credit. When Ryan struggled, Adam remained steady, never stepping in unless invited. Adam, in turn, found himself changed in small but meaningful ways. He laughed more easily. He allowed himself to imagine a future that wasn't defined solely by solitude or routine. Ryan's presence reminded him that growth did not belong only to the young. One evening, sitting together in the garden as the sun dipped low, Ryan spoke softly. "I don't know where I'll be a year from now," he said. Adam considered this. "Neither do I." Ryan looked at him. "Does that scare you?" Adam shook his head. "Not anymore. Uncertainty is easier to face when it's shared." Ryan rested his hands on his knees, feeling the truth of that. Choosing Adam did not mean abandoning the unknown. It meant entering it with someone who respected its weight. They did not label their relationship. They did not need to. What mattered was the way they showed up, for conversations, for silence, for change. Choosing each other was not a single moment, but a series of small, daily decisions made with care. As the evening cooled, Adam stood and offered his hand to help Ryan up. Ryan took it without thinking. The gesture was familiar now, comfortable, carrying no urgency. Inside the house, life continued, meals to prepare, books to read, days to plan. Yet beneath it all was a quiet understanding. They had chosen to walk alongside one another, not out of need, but out of respect and affection. And in that choice both found something rare, not certainty but companionship strong enough to hold whatever came next. Time did what it always does. It moved forward, steady and indifferent, carrying days into weeks and weeks into something softer, more continuous. There was no single moment when Adam and Ryan realized that what they were building had become lasting. It revealed itself slowly, through repetition, through endurance, through the quiet proof of showing up again and again. Ryan eventually found his rhythm beyond the house. He enrolled in courses he had once been too unsure to pursue. He took on work that challenged him without overwhelming him. Some days he came home tired but satisfied, carrying stories of small victories and occasional setbacks. Adam listened to all of them with the same attention, never trying to shape Ryan's path, only walking alongside it. Adam's life, too, expanded in subtle ways. He allowed himself to be seen more, by friends, by the world, by Ryan. He spoke more openly about his past, not with regret but with acceptance. The years he had once thought of as lonely began to feel like preparation instead. They learned each other's seasons. Ryan had days of restlessness, moments when the future pressed too hard against his chest. Adam had days of quiet withdrawal, when reflection pulled him inward. Neither took these moods personally. They had learned the language of space and presence, of when to step closer and when to simply remain nearby. The house adapted to them both. Ryan's books filled shelves that had once been half empty. Adam's routines shifted gently, making room without losing their shape. The garden grew fuller, tended by two sets of hands now, each respecting the other's way of nurturing growth. There were no grand declarations of forever. No promises carved into stone. What they shared did not rely on certainty, it relied on intention. One evening years later, they sat on the porch as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in muted golds and blues. The air was cool, familiar, carrying the scent of earth and leaves. "Do you ever think about how this started?" Ryan asked, his voice thoughtful. Adam smiled faintly. "More often than you might expect." "I came here needing a pause," Ryan said. "I didn't know I was also finding a home." Adam turned to him then. "Home isn't always a place," he said. "Sometimes it's a way of being understood." Ryan nodded. He felt that understanding now in his bones, in the ease of sitting together without needing to fill the silence, in the comfort of knowing that even change would not take away what mattered most. They had weathered questions from others over the years. Some curious, some unkind. They answered only when they felt it necessary and only with honesty. What they shared did not need defending. It lived in how they treated each other, in the balance they maintained. There were moments of difficulty. Illness. Doubt. Decisions that required patience. But none of these broke them. They had learned early on that love was not proven by the absence of hardship, but by the willingness to face it without losing respect. On quiet nights, they often sat together reading or listening to music, or simply sharing the same space. Sometimes Ryan would rest his head against the back of Adam's chair. Sometimes Adam would place a hand on Ryan's shoulder as he passed by. These gestures were small, but they carried years of trust within them. One night, long after the house had gone still, Ryan spoke softly. "Adam?" "Yes." "I'm glad we didn't rush." Adam's answer came without hesitation. "So am I." They had chosen a love that did not demand to be seen, only felt. A love that did not need constant reassurance, only continued care. A love that allowed both of them to remain whole. As seasons changed and time left its marks, new lines, new wisdom, new stories, they continued, not unchanged but together. The future remained unwritten as it always is. But the present was steady, grounded in shared mornings and patient evenings. And if anyone had asked them what bound them so deeply, neither would have spoken of fate or grand passion. They would have spoken of listening. Of choosing again and again. Of a quiet forever built not on noise or urgency but on presence. Because some loves don't announce themselves. They simply endure.